Tech Tip Tuesday. This week, I want to show you how we get the power from the Vr6 back to the back tires. Let's do this. Hey guys, I've got Blitz rolled out today. I wanted to go over something with you guys. We've got the engine pulled, and I thought this would be a good time to just show you a little something about how we're getting the horsepower from the Vr6 to the ground through the rear tires. The Vr6 makes a lot of horsepower when done properly, and a lot of guys back when we first started were complaining that we had an automatic transmission. So the different things you can do as far as getting that power to the ground is the front wheel drives, 9 times out of 10, they have a straight drive transmission with a clutch, whether it be a 5-speed or 6-speed. We have a 2-speed power glide, and then in the past 5 to 10 years, the 400 transmission has become very popular as far as getting power to the ground and accessibility. But the power glide here has been the pinnacle of drag racing for over 50 years. This is the tool that everybody uses more than any other as far as getting power to the ground. And it's just a well-built product straight from the factory, but when you put aftermarket products in it and an aftermarket case, it just becomes that much better. So when we first started with this 5 years ago, the first 2 seasons, every time I'd go to a Volkswagen race, people would get mad at me. They said it was unfair because I was running an automatic transmission. It was unfair, and a lot of the air-cooled guys didn't like it because I was water-cooled with an automatic transmission. So the rule suggestion was tossed around, well, we should make it all straight drive. Well, the problem with that is that would actually have played into my favor, and I kept telling them that. So, you know, when you're in a straight drive, if you push the clutch in, the engine's disengaged. As soon as you let out, you go. Well, with an automatic transmission, you have to overcome a converter. And I'm gonna go over some issues that you may have with the Vr6 when overcoming a converter. But if you notice in drag racing, your most high performance and quickest cars, when they're trying to get all they can out, they're usually like a clutch with a Liberty transmission or something in that area. And what it is the clutch frees up the engine. You're not having to worry about the fluid in this converter and that bogging down the engine. So a clutch is actually freeing up the horsepower in an engine. But let's go back to the power glide. So we have an 8-inch converter, and you have to get these converters built to spec to what you want it to do. So in my case, I said, hey, we're shooting for anywhere from 12 to 1400 horsepower. I would like to leave, say, around 6,000 RPM. And so I had this transmission or this converter built. So this converter here initially was for 6,000 RPM. Now, as we've climbed our power range, the initial days when we run junkyard motors, we could leave and this thing would flash and engage at 6,000 RPM. Now what that means is, when I say flash and engage, a transmission with a converter will not start to move properly until it reaches that set engagement, and we call that flash. So this one's set at 6,000. So if I was staging at 4,500 and I let go of the button, the car will not really engage and accelerate like it should until it reaches that 6,000 RPM point. So on the other side of that, that's built for a certain horsepower. So as you increase your horsepower with this same converter, that flash point will go up and up and up. So now this converter, when we launch at a higher RPM, we're making more boost, we're making more horsepower. It might not engage till 6,900 to 7,300, depending on the tune that's in it. So when you do that, you have to adjust your launch to compensate for that, because you want to be anywhere between 800 and 1,000 flash. So if we're leaving at, say, 5,800, this converter will usually flash to 67 to 6,800 when I let go of the turns brake button. So there's 2 or 3 things that you can do to compensate the struggles with the Vr6. The main struggle with the Vr6 is at about 2,600 RPM to about 3,800 RPM, there's this dead spot. It's just really, really weak in that area. It just doesn't have any butt to get past the inertia that you need to get the turbo turning and the engine revved up. So, you know, if it's in neutral, it's fine. But when you put the load on it with the converter, everything changes. So there's 3 things you can change. For you guys that are on gas or C85, my first question would be, are you running a ice box or an air to water intake system, something like that, something where you're cooling off that air? Because what we found out, especially with the junkyard motors that we ran in the beginning, if we just cooled the air just a little bit, it would get right past that little dead spot and be no problem. In the beginning, we ran a 67mm turbo, and we had an ice chest in a full bird over here, and we ran air through it and out into the intake. Without it, it would not get past that struggle. The second thing you can do, if you're running big cams and a big turbo and it's still struggling, is you can do a nitrous shot. So let's just say it's, the struggle is 29 to 3800. Well, what you do is you can put a 50 horsepower shot, 100 horsepower shot, or 150 horsepower shot, whatever you want to put in there that makes it work. And set it where it comes on at, say, 2600 and shuts off at 36 to 3800. So it's only going to be on maybe 1/10 or 2/10 of a second. It's just a quick blast of nitrous. It's cooling the air again that's going into the system, but it's also giving that horsepower shot that we all know nitrous does and that we love. So you're just giving that little spurt of horsepower. The third thing you can do is what they call a dump valve. And the dump valve is on a transmission, and what it's doing, it's set on your trans brake. It can be set on a timer, but what it does is it actually empties the converter of fluid. It dumps it while you're on a trans brake. So you hook it up into the system of the transmission, it's dumping the fluid out, it lets the converter free, which allows the engine to free up, which helps you get past that dead spot. And as soon as you let go of the button to launch the car, the transmission will just automatically dump all that fluid back in, and it will engage just like it normally would. But that's how it frees up the converter. So those are 3 options that you have. Each one has their positives and negatives. Ice box, you obviously got to keep it filled with ice. You have to worry about it sweating in the summer and keeping that dry so you don't get up underneath the tires. The nitrous, you always got to worry about it being filled, the bottle's filled and ready and having the pressure you need. And the dump valve is just a matter of there's more electrical work to do, there's some plumbing to do, and things like that. But it's a little less, it's a little more maintenance free. You don't have to worry about quite as much. So you don't have things that you have to necessarily worry about. But as anything, the more things you put on the car, the more things you have to worry about it's going to break. So I'm the kind of person I try to do as least as possible, so it's easier to maintain, it's easier on me to take care of in between rounds. I hope this helps you guys. For those of you guys with automatic transmissions and are struggling with Vr6 a little bit, I believe this will help you. Just pick one of those 3 things and just kind of see which one may help you the best and then go with it. If you have any questions, as always, you can message me. I enjoy talking to you guys. You've messaged me a lot here in the past few weeks for sure. We got some great news coming up the first week of August that I want to share with you guys. So be sure to like us, share us with others, and again, leave your comments. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.